Canada has made it very clear nobody ever deserves to be tortured. And when a Canadian government either is complicit in that or was not active enough in preventing it, there needs to be a responsibility taken.
We're gathered today, June 25th, on the eve of an important International Day of Solidarity with victims and survivors of torture around the world. This is a United Nations Day of Solidarity.
Okay, first, I'd like to apologize. Mo's not here because he's trying to be a good citizen and he's at work.
Thanks so much to everyone for being here today. It's great to see so many people, but it's sad that we have to be here again.
There continues to be deep, very serious concern about the injustices that Mohamed Harkat has endured for so long now. And I just did a tally, friends. Do you know that it has been 5,677 days of injustice for Mohamed Harkat?
We are here because the original evidence was destroyed against Mo, and the majority of the allegations are based on an informant that failed his lie detector test, and his credibility was never tested. It will always be the government's word versus Mo's word. We cannot win.
He was first arrested under the Immigration Security Certificate back in 2002 that unleashed this Kafkaesque, unending nightmare.
It's sad that once again we're outside the Prime Minister's office, once again demanding, after 15 years, that Mohamed Harkat, that Mo, not be deported to torture.
For 16 years we've been going through torture, psychological torture, and living with a cloud of deportation. But I have to say that the last couple of weeks CBSA has been harassing us since our last bail review.
We have a problem in our criminal justice system, particularly for Muslim men, who are disproportionately criminalized, disproportionately subject to a different justice system.
These types of security laws are used against certain communities, that they are driven by fear, that they can be misused in ways that target Muslim men, Muslim women, people of color, Indigenous peoples across this country, and that is what we have seen for 15 years, and it's gone parallel to Mo's case.
And there are people in high places in this country right now who can stop this, or who can start standing against the legacy of this. And I'm very honored to be with the campaigners here who are presenting these documents to our Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's staff.
It's not good enough just to call for respect for international law. You actually have to comply with international law. So today, we are going to be presenting the Prime Minister with a key part of that international law. It is the 1984 Convention Against Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman, or Degrading Treatment or Punishment. And if you read this, and if Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland read this, they will immediately cancel all deportation to torture proceedings against Mohamed Harkat, and they will not initiate deportation to torture hearings against Mohamed Majoub.
This government is the government that signed the certificate against Mohamed, and they're the same government who have the power to stop this.
There have been not one, not two, not three, but now 4 prime ministers who have had it in their hands to do the right thing, to cancel this deportation and ensure that Mohamed Harkat's nightmare of human rights violations and injustice and deep fear about return to torture will finally come to an end. It has to end here.
Mo needs to stay here where he has a family, where he is loved. He's loved by his community, by his supporters, by his friends.
I've been part of the support team for all these years, but more than that, I consider them to be personal friends.
They immediately felt this is a man of honor, a man who respects people, a man who has great, great compassion.
He is a zero risk in Canada.
Despite the government's own agencies, despite the courts, despite psychiatrists finding that Mo and people in his community, all of us here, that he poses no risk to Canada, that he still continues to face deportation to torture.
Whenever I see Mo, he will say, you know, he's afraid. He's afraid, and we can tell him what we want. This government will never, never deport you. But deep in Mo's heart, there is an immense fear, and only our government can take that away. And I hope that that will happen now.
this. Why would we ever even think about sending you away to torture?
There are continue to be directives on the books that allow the Canadian government to share information with regimes that we know commit mistreatment and torture.
That when these issues are constantly raised by people like you who care, that we can start moving open some of these doors.
Prime Minister Trudeau, we're gathering because we look to you for the leadership, for the principled commitment that you have put in front of the international community so many times, that Canada will absolutely, unconditionally always stand against torture. Here's your opportunity to demonstrate.
Right now, Ralph Goodale, our public safety minister, could sign a piece of paper that stops Mohamed Harkat from being deported to torture. And he hasn't he hasn't responded to those calls.
They can just put an end to this. The minister has had her file for over a year and a half, and he can just sign a paper to end this and just do the right thing.
The cavalier, callous willingness of the Canadian government to steam ahead with this case on the basis of secretive, unfair proceedings.
We are highly concerned that if Mohamed Harkat is deported to Algeria, that information from our own security agencies would continue to be shared and place Mo and other people at risk.
Secret trials have been going on for decades in this country. They must be brought to an end.
We want to move on with our lives. Mo was never a threat, is not a threat, will never be a threat. He has a clear criminal record.
The law under which Mo is slated to be deported to torture, the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, George Orwell would be pleased, actually has a section in there saying this act must be read not with respect to, but in compliance with international law. And this is international law with which the government must be in compliance. So we're now going to head over to Metcalfe Street, and we're going to deliver this personally.
We're here to deliver a very important piece of mail, which is the Convention Against Torture, because my husband is facing deportation to torture, and we would like to tell the Prime Minister to put an end to this. Put an end to it. Please make sure he gets it, because if he doesn't get it, we'll keep putting the pressures on. Thank you.
This is international law that is binding on Canada. It is incorporated into the Canadian Criminal Code. It is incorporated into the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. And so by trying to deport Mohamed Harkat to torture, we are, as a nation, as a government, in violation of the Convention Against Torture. Sophie is now just about to deliver the Convention Against Torture to Mr. Trudeau. We are calling on Mr. Trudeau to read this convention and to comply with this convention. Call the Prime Minister's office. The number is on the website of the Office of the Prime Minister, and leave a message there saying, I was here today. I demand that you read this convention and that you comply with this convention and drop the deportation against Mohamed Harkat. Further, we ask you to direct your Public Safety Minister, Ralph Goodale, to act on an application which has been on his desk for 2 years to land him as a permanent resident of Canada. Enough with the psychological torture, enough with the limbo. Call him, email him, and when you see this on Facebook, share it with your friends and encourage them to do the same. This government has to be pushed.
If the government of Canada want to send me to Algeria, they have to send me with a box. They're gonna torch me and bury me on it.
Listen, do you hear it? Listen, do you feel it? Listen, I'm calling you. Listen, you.
We're in front of Prime Minister Trudeau's office in particular because he's the one now who needs to live up to the promises, the very fine words we have heard from him and other members of his government several times now about how Canada does stand strong against torture, how Canada does stand with the survivors and victims of torture. Well, if that's the case, how can it be that 5,677 days later, we need to gather here one more time?
And thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for attending all our rallies and for being so supportive. And this is one reason why we've kept going all these years, because all of you are around and we feel the love and we feel the support.
Listen.